Hello, everyone, and welcome to our program, A COVID Conversation. I'm Kim Chaney, Chair of the Women's Giving Circle, and I'm here today with Linda Roth, the Vice Chair of the Giving Circle. Unusual times called for changed responses, and today, in lieu of our annual grant ceremony, we're sharing 2 interviews with our COVID grant recipients. Even though we are not holding the annual ceremony, we're thrilled to report actually, that we have awarded $220,000 in grants to local organizations, 22 different organizations that support women and their dependents in Frederick County. Our grantees have been notified and the grant funds have started to be dispersed. So before we go any further, a big, gigantic thank you to our members. We could not participate this way in the community and assist women in Frederick County without your support and your significant donations. So thank you very, very much. In response to the COVID-19 pandemic, your leadership circle felt like that we needed to take action to further support women and their dependents in Frederick County. We were fortunate enough to be able to partner with the United Way of Frederick County, the Community Foundation of Frederick County, and several other local funders to provide that assistance. We were able to make 2 additional grant awards for $10,000 each to 2 organizations whose missions align the same as the Giving Circle. So we're happy today to have an opportunity to talk to those 2 organizations, and we're going to be able to speak with them about how they have been locally impacted by this global pandemic. Again, through the dedication of our members is the only reason why we were able to provide this support. So a big pat on the back to our members who made this support possible. Today we're going to be speaking with Dr. Inga James, the CEO of Hartley House, and with Terri Gray, the Director of Faith House. So we look forward to our conversations with them. And first, we'll welcome Dr. Inga James. Dr. James, Inga, welcome today.
Thank you.
I want to start off by thanking you and Hartley House for the work that you do for the victims of domestic violence in Frederick County. That's a gigantic undertaking in normal times, but in the times of this pandemic, I'm sure it's been quite a challenge.
Yes, it is. It's really difficult for families right now.
Well, you know, Linda and I and the members of the Giving Circle really thank you, and we were so grateful to be able to help with this little part. Hopefully it did some good for your organization.
Absolutely.
Can you tell us a couple of things? You know, we all hear in the press about it's worse for victims of domestic violence. Can you tell us about that and why that is and what happens?
Well, right now what we understand from the police department is that domestic violence calls for service are at the same level as they were in 2019 at this time. So we're at that level or a little bit higher, but the severity rate is much less. So what that's telling me is that the people who are in the most danger are not calling, because we're not getting the strangulation and the broken bones and the knife wounds and the things that we generally see and saw a lot more of at this time in 2019. So that's the level of stress that families are facing right now. It's just layer upon layer of stress, including having the children at home and having to act as teacher, including having a spouse who may be out of work. You may be out of work as well, possibility of losing the house. We have all these wonderful rent abatements that are happening right now that the government has worked on, but that rent's going to come due at some point in time. And so people are going to have a lot of financial difficulty even after they go back to work. So that increased stress means increased violence and decreased coping mechanisms and decreased ability to manage conflict. So yes, domestic violence rates are expected to go up. Our call rate has been low lately, or since March actually, and we're not getting the calls we usually would get from the people who don't want to call the police, who want services but don't want to report it to the police. They'll call us instead. We're not getting those calls. So people are not reaching out for help. We're also getting many calls from prior clients who are re-traumatized by the pandemic, and re-triggered. So domestic violence, we believe is becoming much more severe over this time period, and much better hidden.
That's very interesting. I hadn't thought about the re-triggering with the pandemic.
Right.
What about children? Are there ways that you've seen children have been impacted in particular about the pandemic?
Yes, absolutely. Reports of child sexual abuse in Frederick County have decreased 60% from this time last year. What that means is that children are being abused, but they're not interacting with teachers or school nurses or counselors or coaches or the lunch lady. Nobody else, no other caring adult is able to see what's going on with them. So these children are suffering the same abuse, but it's never being reported and they're not getting help. So children, and then the same is true for physical abuse. A little bit, it's less of an issue, but abuse of any kind thrives in secrecy and isolation, and that's what's happening right now.
Well, that's a terrible situation. Thank you for sharing that. How about the way you've had to communicate? Because certainly with everyone all cooped up together, it's harder to make a phone call. How has that worked for Hartley House?
It's really been difficult, and we're still working on getting it right, but I don't think we're ever going to do that. So our major communication issues have come in the way of our counseling program, who have moved to a telehealth model, but not everybody appreciates or works well in a telehealth model, especially when they're covering such deep and painful things as they do in our counseling program. So that's been and I'll tell you, the technology had to move fast because it was not up to speed when all of this happened. And so there's been a lot of technological issues. One of the things that we're realizing, because we're trying to go all electronic with our communications, is that a lot of our clients don't have updated technology where any of these apps work. And so and some are still in remote areas where they don't get a signal.
Well, I think with telehealth, they have to be able to talk on if I was having this conversation with the counselor and my husband or abuser were here, he would be able to hear me.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. So a lot of people have not been able to utilize our services for that reason. Our legal department has been continuing to work, but they don't see clients face to face except for in court. Only attorneys are allowed in the courtroom now, attorneys and parties to the case. So no advocates can go in and work with victims while they're sitting in the same hall as their abuser. We don't have advocates that can go in and help control that situation, because that happens all the time.
Tell us about
go ahead. I'm sorry.
Still Here campaign and how what you were doing with that campaign and how the funds that the Women's Giving Circle provided were able to help with that campaign.
Yes, thank you so much for that funding. Because we have had such a low call rate in our hotline, and also requests for protective orders were dropping, requests for counseling were dropping, we knew something was wrong. And we heard on the street, where we hear a lot of different stuff about Hartley House, we heard on the street that people didn't realize we were still open. So we said, well, we got to fix that. And so the Women's Giving Circle gave us $10,000 to create the hashtag Still Here campaign, which we used, which we put advertisements in the newspaper, on radio, online, all over the place. We had a wonderful marketing company, Posture, help us, and it was just beautiful. And after that, our call rate started going up. And even more important than that, people requesting protective orders went up. because we did something special for protective orders because people thought the courts were shut down. And then the protective order requests started going up. So people started understanding there was still safety out there.
That's wonderful. That's
Yeah.
great news that you saw that impact.
Yeah, it was fast too.
And I think I somewhere along the way you mentioned that there was a match that you were able to take advantage of. Tell us about that too and what that entailed.
The Frederick News Post parent company put out there that they were willing to give a match in advertising dollars to their newspapers for any nonprofit that wanted to get messages out about COVID or about their services or about anything. So we submitted an application and they gave us $5,000. And so we were only to match the Women's Giving Circle gift. So we were able to expand even more. And we were also able to expand our location because we've been trying to do many more things, many more outreach activities online. And so we wanted to build a great big audience from outside Frederick County as well. And because this newspaper company has newspapers all over this region, that we were able to do that. So it's great. It was a great gift, and the match, it was just like something sent from heaven.
That's wonderful. We're so glad to hear that. So thinking about maybe moving forward out of this pandemic, if that ever happens, how are things going to be different for Hartley House, do you think, in the future than they've been in the past?
I think I think there are silver linings actually. And one of them is that we've learned a whole lot about technology being in this position. And I think we're going to be able to integrate it into our services so that will help us reach more people because if you're in Brunswick and you don't have any gas money and you have a counseling appointment, what are you going to do? You can't make it. So telehealth will really help us work with those people who don't have the resources to get into our office. So that's one thing. But I think that when people start to feel more comfortable coming out, because I know we're reopening slowly, but I still think there are a lot of people who are not comfortable going out even to eat on the sidewalk. And so I think what's going to happen is when people start to feel comfortable coming out, we're going to get an explosion of requests for services. I think the police are going to see it. I wouldn't be surprised if reopening creates even more stress because you got decisions you have to make about, do I go out? Do I not go out? Who then do I get to see? So, so I think the stress is just going to escalate, and the unknown is one of the biggest stressors of all because we don't know what's going to happen the rest of the year. So I think we're going to have a lot of traumatized people, and I think that we as a community need to recognize that and need to address it and prepare for it.
So I always like to end on something positive. The work that you do is so important and there's so much sadness. Is there anything positive you can tell us, or maybe an example of a client who has survived domestic violence and gone on to thrive, or a child who has done so? Something you could share with our members?
Sure. Let me tell you a little bit about our shelter during this pandemic. We have 3 wings. All of our rooms are individual bedrooms, so we're not dormitory style. So each family has their own room. And we have 3 wings. So with those 3 wings, we decided that we were able to keep 3 families, 1 in each wing, to keep them quarantined during this time. We have had 3 families since March 17th, which is the day that we shut down. Staying there in quarantine, because they can't look for apartments, they can't look for jobs, they can't do any of the things they'd normally be doing there. And finally, just last week, one of them got to move into her own apartment and be quarantined in her own place. That's really significant because it's such a morale buster when you're stuck with little kids in one room in a shelter. So, yeah, that's a success story. I'm glad that happened.
That's wonderful. Well, congratulations to that resident. I'm glad. We'll wish them all the best in the future.
Thank you. Yeah.
So we want to thank you again for taking the time to talk to us today. Again, the Giving Circle and all of the Frederick community really so value the work that Hartley House does. Thank you so much. And we know you're busy, have 1,000 things to do. We thank you for taking time to talk to us today.
Thank you, Kim. Thank you for the wonderful gift. Hashtag still here.
Okay, we'll keep supporting you as best we can.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. James. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Now it is my pleasure to introduce Linda Roth. Linda Roth is currently the vice chair of the Giving Circle, but she's your incoming chairman. Welcome, Linda.
As Kim mentioned, Faith House is another organization that received a special Women's Giving Circle grant, and I'm fortunate to have with me today Terri Gray, Director of Faith House. Welcome, Terri. Terri, your grant request was specifically for Faith House Transitional Living Program. Can you share with us a little bit about Faith House, its connection to the Frederick Rescue Mission, and additionally, how does the Transitional Living Program work in our community?
Oh, sure. Absolutely. I'm happy to. Faith House is one of the programs with the Frederick Rescue Mission. So Faith House was started a long time ago, but and it had gone away before Arnold, our current executive director, came on board. And he came to the mission over 15 years ago, and it's always been his vision and mission to bring back a program for women who are experiencing homelessness and children. And in December of 2016, Faith House opened in its current location, and I was blessed to be able to come on board in March of 2018. And we, this year, expanded and grew. So Faith House now has two programs. We have our emergency shelter, which is our 90-day program. 90 days is really fast, though, to be able to get back on your feet, especially when a lot of our women come to us with nothing. They come to us with a backpack full of clothes, and really that's it. They're allowed to get extensions 2 weeks at a time after those 90 days. And most of our women stay approximately 4 to 5 months. We have been, within me being here just a few months, by summer of 2018, we were on a waiting list, and we've been on a waiting list ever since, since COVID. So still on a waiting list. However, we're not full during COVID. However, we had been on a waiting list with over 100 people on our waiting list. And so the need is definitely there. We have been to be able to expand, and right behind the Faith House location is an apartment building. So we have expanded into that apartment building to offer transitional living. And we opened up our transitional living program at the very end of January of this year. So it was such a blessing also, because we were able to utilize some of the apartments during COVID to help mitigate the risk to our women and our children. But the transitional living program, the women will be able to stay here for up to a year. So ideally, they're going to be able to start at Faith House in our 90-day program. Once they obtain employment, they're going to be able to qualify for our transitional living program, which is an apartment where the moms will have 6 apartments for women with children, and they'll be able to stay in that apartment with just them and their family. They will also still receive wraparound services, so they'll still receive case management services, and they'll also receive therapeutic conversations with our program specialist. So what that does is that will allow the women to continue the healing process from trauma and be able to continue to build some resiliency skills.
Right. That's wonderful. That's a major accomplishment. Yeah. So speaking about the COVID-19 as we are right now, what are the immediate impact and immediate plans that you had to face sort of like right from the get-go of the shutdown with COVID-19, and how do you feel these last couple months and your next couple months will have in store for Faith House?
Sure. Well, Faith House was definitely impacted as everyone else was. So first of all, because we were living in a community. So we can have Faith House in the 90-day program. We can have up to 20 women and children living there at one time. So that was definitely over that 10-person congregating together.
Right.
Yeah. And so we definitely had to make some decisions. And that's where the apartment building was such a huge blessing, because what we ended up doing, we first of all let all of our women know that if they had somewhere else to go, which usually if they come to us, they don't have anywhere else to go, when it be at Faith House. We did have one woman that moved in with a friend of hers parents who they had some health issues and wanted some help during COVID. So we let her know that her spot would be held for her if she wanted to hunker down, as they were saying, outside of Faith House. And that has worked out so well with her being a caregiver to them that actually just this past week, that has turned into stable, permanent housing for her right now. So she has now moved in with them, and she is their permanent caregiver, and then she's also working a job. And then we were able to move the rest of the women and children over to the apartment. So each one of our moms and their kids received their own private apartment, which helped to mitigate that risk because they did not have to share the kitchen together. They didn't have to share a bathroom. If anyone did get sick, they were already isolated. And so that helped to mitigate that risk. In the Women's Giving Circle, you all were a blessing to us because God ordained for me to talk to you all right before COVID happened.
Exactly.
Blessed us with so many Lysol wipes and paper towels.
Yep.
All got us stocked up, and God knew what He was doing.
That's how valuable that would really be.
Pardon?
I said, who knew how valuable that would have really turned out to be?
Yes, it definitely was.
Yeah. So
now.
I was going to say, can you talk a little bit about some of the other organizations? I know that, sometimes they partner with you, and how's that impacting the community with organizations that you normally, support you, and how's that outreach to the community working to keep those bonds going and those connections?
Sure. And one of our connections is Hartley House, because their shelter is very short term. It is helping women be safe now, because they provide shelter for women who are in imminent danger. And when it's appropriate, they refer to us. And so we have definitely been continuing to accept applications during COVID. Hartley House is one of them. We are so blessed to be able to, we're anticipating within the next 2 weeks to reopen Faith House. And we're going to be doing it. We have, Arnold joked around that my plan was more detailed than the governor's. I submitted a plan. What is going to look like for Faith House Phase 2, Phase 3. And so what's that?
You had your own phases going.
I had my own phases. That's right, what it's going to look like. So Phase 1 for us, which we're hoping to, we're planning on entering within 2 weeks and bringing some women back to the 90-day shelter, because we do still have that waiting list, and we have women at Hartley that are waiting for shelter and to get into the program. But we're going to be doing it at 25%. And so we're going to be starting with 4 women and then up to 5 children. So we'll take 2 moms and families and then 2 women that are coming to us without children. So together with the team member, we're still within that 10 people limit for congregating. And then we're also going to be able to continue to do that social distancing of the 6 feet apart with masks and the whole 9 yards for that. We have continued to partner with Justice Jobs. They have continued to help our ladies with employment services and help with that. We also have continued with Family Partnership. Family Partnership has continued to do their parenting classes through I think it's Zoom, through an online platform with our women, and they have been phenomenal, dropping off care packages to our women. We partnered with the Buddy Project and have gotten some new computers, refurbished computers to be able to use here in our office space at the transitional living apartments. Orenda Center definitely is their reference. They refer to us as well, and so I know we have women on the waiting list from there. We also Celebrate Recovery. We are Celebrate Recovery focused here at Faith House. Well, recovery is not our focus. We're employment focused and shelter focused. But all of the women coming to us have experienced deep trauma. if you are familiar with the ACEs, which is the Adverse Childhood Experiences, about, I think it's roughly 67% of the population of the United States has one ACE. And if you have 4 ACEs, you're, I think, 14 times more likely to have suicidal ideology, 12 times more likely to be an intravenous drug user.
Right.
The highest, our women average 8 out of 10. So they come to us with a lot of trauma.
It sounds like a lot of the organizations, I'm happy to hear, the partnerships have still been able to continue, even though, you know, there's some difficult times, but people are feeling capable to still reach out and be connected even through the COVID. So that's really good news to hear those partnerships are still continuing. So
Yes.
as you shared a little bit about the overview of Faith House and the transitional living program, is there any woman or child or that you could just briefly kind of share with us that kind of start from, you know, the beginning and kind of transitioned out back into, you know, a home or just a journey that this woman or child may have had?
Yes. One of them, even during COVID, we've had women being able to move through our program and be able to move forward into successful, stable housing.
Mm-hmm.
One of the women that was able to do that, she came to us at the end of the summer last year, and she was about 5 at the time and living in a tent by herself and very hungry. And she came in that day and entered Faith House. And then we were able to work with her till the end of summer when her daughter was born. And I'm so thankful to say and to be able to celebrate with her that the end of February, beginning of March, she's now a homeowner. She programs here in our county, able to purchase a trailer for her and her daughter. So she's now a homeowner. She never would have thought that. After coming to us, we got her hooked up with FCC, so she was taking some classes. She's going to graduate, and she just graduated at the end of May. And then she's going to continue on doing, she's getting her security certificate. So she's moving on from, she got her certificate, and now she's going to start her AA program. So she's
incredible.
Yes, just an amazing story.
Right. So wonderful. Just a short little note. Terri and I are both in our Leadership Frederick class 2020, and we've been on hiatus as well. So it's nice to see you, Terri, and at least see you like this, if not in our Leadership Frederick class. So, but we appreciate you spending the time with us today and sharing about the mission of the Faith House and knowing that things are moving in a very positive direction and that you guys are still doing great work in our community. So thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so much for the opportunity, and thank you so much for your support.
Absolutely. Thank you, Terri and Inga, as well, for spending some time with us today. We truly appreciate the commitment you have, along with the other grantees we support, to the Frederick community. The Women's Giving Circle will continue to support women and their dependents here in Frederick County, and both Kim and I are so proud to belong to the Women's Giving Circle, founded by Carlos Klein over 15 years ago, now with 400 members who collectively give to strengthen the bonds of support to the women and children of Frederick. Stories from Inga and Terri are just a few of the examples of the work the Circle does. Our formal grants reception was scheduled to be today, but as many other events in our community, we had to reschedule. And at this time, it will be held Tuesday, September 8th at the Arc of Frederick County. We will gather there then to celebrate more organizations that continue to make a huge impact in our community. On behalf of Kim and I and the entire membership of the Women's Giving Circle, have a great day, stay safe, and thank you for joining us.